Australia is known worldwide for its spiders, and even after you cast aside the vacuous hype and hysteria, a task far simpler said than done, Australian spiders still make for an ensemble truly captivating, a source of fascination and intrigue aplenty. And nor do you have to brave the untamed wilderness of the great outdoors to behold a taste of their marvel. For while many may confine themselves to the leagues of rugged lands upon which mankind has not yet encroached, others embrace the chaos of city life and can be found thriving even in the beating heart of human civilization.
Among Australia's backyard spiders are a select few that are so abundant and so conspicuous that you'd be hard-pressed not to notice them unless you walk around with your eyes closed. And I think it's a safe guess that most people here don't walk around with their eyes closed. They save that for when they're driving. Perhaps the most prominent of these commonplace backyard locals are the golden orb-weavers from the family Nephilidae. 3 species of golden orb-weaver can be found on the Australian mainland. By far the biggest is Nephilepilipes, females of which can have leg spans approaching 20 centimeters across, and unusually for an orb-weaver, they can continue to grow after they reach maturity, which no doubt helps them to attain such spectacular dimensions. Somewhat smaller, but for many I'd wager a much more familiar sight, are the country's 2 Trichonephila species, Trichonephila plumipes and Trichonephila edulis. Along Australia's eastern coast, both of these spiders occur in abundance, and a simple walk down the street is likely to yield no shortage of sightings of the impressively sized females perched upon their glamorous golden webs. Though very similar to one another at first glance, Australia's Trichonephila species are easy enough to tell apart upon a closer look. Trichonephila plumipes has distinctive yellow bands on its legs, while Trichonephila edulis is overall more subdued in colour, sporting a mix of pale grey and reddish-brown. Males of both species, as is the universal norm for golden orb-weavers, are minuscule compared to their female counterparts.
Golden orb-weavers, spectacular as they may be, are naught but the tip of the iceberg when it comes to backyard spiders down under. Even if we simply look to the other orb-weavers, the variety that abounds within those few square meters of greenery outside your house is astounding. Between post and branch, across railing and wall, amid shrubbery unkempt and hedgerow meticulously pruned, orb-weavers of all kinds sit atop their silken snares. Every bit as familiar and impressive of a sight as the immense gilded webs of the golden orb-weavers are the intricate, dome-shaped dwellings of Suonatore malacensis. In the rays of the morning sun, these marvellous constructions glisten and glimmer in the likeness of a fair gemstone with 1,000 tiny facets carved onto its face. And nor are they likely to be an isolated sight, for Suonatore malacensis is a somewhat gregarious species, regularly forming colonies that may range from just a handful of individuals to enormous assemblies comprising tens or even hundreds of these spiders. But despite their proximity and the interconnectedness of their dwellings, each spider lives and hunts as an individual.
Another prominent genus of backyard orb-weaver is Argiope. For the most part, Argiope species tend to be reasonably large and vibrantly patterned spiders, often sporting vivid black and yellow markings. A number of Argiope species can be found here in Australia, with perhaps the most commonly encountered being Argiope kieselingi. To capture their prey, Argiope employ the quintessential circular orb web, but with a slight twist. Toward the hub of the web is a distinct pattern of densely packed silk, which, depending on species, can range from an irregular patch to, as is often the case for Argiope kieselingi, an X-shaped construction. This feature, known properly as a stabilimentum, appears to serve the rather surprising function of attracting prey by reflecting ultraviolet light, which many insects are drawn to.
But beyond the daytime ensemble are yet more species of orb-weavers that prefer to spend these sunlit hours tucked away in idle slumber, and seldom reveal their splendour until the veiling of the sun. One of the biggest and most prevalent among these nighttime apparitions is Hortophora, a robust and powerfully built orb-weaver that often spends the day residing in a crude but well-hidden shelter constructed from foliage. But as the cruel stillness of the night sets in, and the denizens of the day grow weary, Hortifora abandons its cryptic vigil, and begins to weave a web that puts the work of many of her daytime cousins to utter shame. When complete, it can span over a meter across, a vast and lethal trap for any nocturnal insects out for a nightly flutter. Come sunrise, Hortifora retreats into its self-designated obscurity once more, sometimes taking down and consuming its web in the process, and other times leaving it empty and vacant, ready to be reclaimed ere the setting of the sun.
Closely related to the orb-weavers are the Theridiids, or comb-footed spiders, some of which can be prolific around human dwellings. For the most part, Theridiids, like the vast majority of spiders, are essentially harmless, but there is one very notable exception, that being the genus Latrodectus, and here, in Australia, there is but one member of that genus, the infamous and iconic Latrodectus hasseltii, the redback. Latrodectus hasseltii is armed with a powerful venom, and while bites from these spiders are very seldom life-threatening, they can still make for a most unpleasant experience. Despite their impressive armature, Latrodectus, like their much less venomous relatives, are timid, inoffensive spiders that would much prefer to flee than bite. Living in similar habitats to the Theridiids, and shockingly abundant once you start to notice them, are a very unusual family of spiders called the Uloboridae. Uloborids construct what I guess you could call orb webs, though compared to the extravagant creations of spiders like Hortifora and Trichonephila, the webs spun by Uloborids look like a cheap and vaguely insulting mockery. As if to hide from the embarrassment of spinning some of the most unimpressive webs in existence, Uloborids are often very well camouflaged, to the point that they are quite easily mistaken for nothing more than fragments of debris suspended in their webs. These odd little spiders are seldom seen alone. In a suitable habitat, huge numbers of Uloborids can occur, all living in very close proximity. In certain species, like Zorsis geniculata, these instances of coexistence are nothing more than loose aggregations, wherein each spider occupies its own web, living and hunting as an individual. Other species, like Philipponella congregabilis, however, have taken these gregarious tendencies a little further, forming small, intergenerational colonies comprised of a number of interconnected webs. Uloborids, very unusually among spiders, lack venom entirely, and instead subdue their victims by enveloping them in silk and regurgitating digestive fluids over the hapless bundle.
Uloborids utilize a primitive form of silk called cribellate silk. This is a soft and fuzzy concoction that lacks the adhesive properties of the silk used by some other spiders like orb-weavers, and instead relies on its woolly texture to entangle anything that strays upon it. And Uloborids aren't the only common household spiders that use this kind of silk either. Another very frequent sight in suburbia is the house spiders from the genus Venomless, whose messy, funnel-shaped webs, also a cribellate construction, are regularly seen both indoors and outdoors. In the wild, Venomless prefer to frequent the trunks of rough-barked trees, wherein the abundance of fissures and crevices provide the spiders with plentiful opportunities to set up their lairs. But it seems that Venomless have found ample lodgings among a plethora of man-made structures too, and have laid claim to our living quarters in a way that few other spiders have managed, with nearly every fence and windowsill bearing masses of their dense, untidy webs. One of the only spiders in Australia that might give Venomless a run for its money in terms of how well adjusted it's become to living in human dwellings is Pholcus phalangoides, better known as the Daddy Longlegs. Indeed, this spider has embraced human habitation so well that I was hesitant to include it on this rundown of backyard spiders because really it's more of an indoor spider. Pholcus phalangoides also isn't an Australian spider per se, rather it's of European origin, and has since been spread across the globe by human endeavours, and this spindly-legged European is more than capable of holding its own in the land down under.
Not all spiders spin webs, of course. Many take a more proactive approach to hunting, and are instead adapted for capturing their prey directly, and our homes and their surroundings provide plentiful opportunities for these spiders too. And out of all the spider world's runners and wanderers, prowlers and prancers, what better group to start with than the most endearing and charismatic of all spiders, the family Salticidae, better known as the jumping spiders.
Jumping spiders are a highly successful group, containing over 6,000 described species worldwide, which together comprise about 13% of spider species alive. This incredible diversity, unrivaled by any other spider families, is all the more impressive given their relative recency. Genetic and fossil evidence indicates that jumping spiders were among the last spiders to evolve. So not only have they achieved a degree of variety and global abundance scarcely paralleled in the spider world, they have done so in a comparatively limited time frame. Jumping spiders are for the most part easy to recognize. All of them are small spiders, with even the country's largest species, Mopsus mormon, reaching a body length of only a couple centimeters. Many have a rather squat, compact build, but in a group as diverse as the jumping spiders, it should come as no surprise that there are some deviations from the norm. Certain species have evolved greatly flattened bodies as an adaptation for squeezing into narrow crevices like beneath the bark of trees, but many of our own constructions have provided these bark dwellers with a wealth of alternative habitats, and the multitude of nooks and crannies along this simple metal railing are prime real estate for a healthy population of these flat-bodied curiosities. Some of the most fascinating of all jumping spiders, however, you may never even notice, and not because they are in any way rare, but because it can be quite difficult to even recognize them for what they are. Many species of jumping spider mimic ants, some so effectively that even a practiced eye can be bamboozled by their bluff. And this mimicry of their insect namesakes goes beyond simple appearance. Their mannerisms too reflect those of ants to quite an incredible degree. The spiders walk in a similar manner to ants and even wave around their front pair of legs in stunning likeness to an ant's antennae. And since ants are to many predators an undesirable or even unpalatable prey item, this facade helps these ant-mimicking spiders avoid unwanted attention.
Despite all this variety, identifying jumping spiders, regardless of whether their body plans are standard or surreal, is easy enough once you take a look at their eyes, for they are some of the most distinctive possessed by any spider. The foremost pair, the anterior median eyes, are huge and face directly forward. It's often said in biology that structure relates to function, and many times you can gauge the importance and functionality of a given anatomical feature based off how prominent or well-developed it is. Thus, it should come as no surprise that jumping spiders possess excellent eyesight. And unlike many spiders which chiefly perceive their surroundings through touch and vibration, rely heavily on their acute vision to navigate their world and to hunt.
Jumping spiders are not the only small, squat spiders with a knack for punching above their weight. In many of the same habitats, one stands a chance of encountering crab spiders. Properly known as the Thomisidae, crab spiders are abundant in our parks and gardens, but compared to the jumping spiders, they are rather seldom seen, due in part to their generally more cryptic appearance and behavior. Crab spiders are many and varied, but there are yet a handful of common traits across the group, chief among them being the configuration of their legs. The front 4 legs are often large, robust, and powerful, while the back 4 are noticeably smaller and thinner. This body plan does not lend itself well to speed, and crab spiders tend to be pretty cumbersome walkers. But this hampered mobility matters not to their success as hunters, for crab spiders have mastered the art of sitting and waiting. Crab spiders often frequent the foliage of plants, with flowers being a common hunting arena due to their attractiveness to insects. And when prey ventures close enough, the spider, in one fell swoop, seizes it with its powerful front legs, locking it in a deathly grip that few victims could hope to escape. Most crab spiders live a solitary existence, but in the trees and shrubs of many Australian bushlands and backyards, a very special type of crab spider not known from any other continent finds sanctuary. This nondescript bundle of interwoven leaves is home to a small colony of social crab spiders, who not only live together but quite evidently share the spoils of their hunts. Social behaviour in spiders is rare in general, and social behaviour in spiders that don't spin webs is rarer still, making these some of the most unique spiders I've ever featured. And once you learn to recognise their secret dwellings, you'll be surprised at just how prolific they can be.
While crab spiders, with their stout, powerful build, might be the heavyweight wrestlers within their miniature world, the same bushy verges they so often inhabit are also host to other small hunting spiders adapted not for grappling and brute strength, but for speed. These are the Oxyopidae, better known as lynx spiders. Though they are, like the crab spiders, ambush predators, their sleek, lightweight build grants them considerably greater mobility, and they are not only fast on their feet, but very capable jumpers as well. The legs of many lynx spiders are covered in long spines, which help the spider restrain its prey, and they excel at capturing small, fast-moving targets like flies. However, their delicate build makes it difficult for them to overcome larger adversaries, and they themselves can quite easily fall prey to both jumping spiders and crab spiders. Next up, we have a group that no coverage of spiders down under could possibly go without. Some of the biggest, most familiar, and most iconic spiders in the country, the family Spiracidae, known colloquially as Huntsman. Though Australia is hardly the epicenter of diversity for these spiders, with both the greatest number of species and the biggest species occurring in Asia, Australian huntsmen can nonetheless be very impressive. And there's also something to be said about how we've embraced these huge hairy spiders as de facto pets. That being said, there's also quite the tendency for people here to exaggerate the size of huntsmen. Big as these spiders indubitably are, reports of them getting as wide as dinner plates are suspect to say the least, and are likely just one of many cases of Australians overstating how big and impressive the animals in the land down under are, presumably as compensation for the lack of big, impressive things in their own down under.
Australia is home to about 200 species of huntsmen, though only a handful of these tend to show up around human dwellings with any degree of frequency. Their crab-like leg arrangement allows these spiders to move not only forwards, but sideways with considerable speed, an ability that is key to their prowess as hunters. Upon the setting of the sun, these spiders emerge from their daytime hideouts and stand motionless in the open, sometimes for hours on end. Sensory hairs coat their legs, detecting the faintest of airborne vibrations. Even the subtlest of movements, the most imperceptible of tactical cues, will be enough to betray the presence of any prey item that ventures close, whereupon the spider will proceed to pounce with blinding speed. In the wild, many huntsmen live under the bark of trees, and the flattened bodies which allow them in their natural habitat to squeeze into such tight crevices also make it easier for them to enter and find sanctuary in our homes. Out of all the huntsmen that can be encountered in one's living quarters, there are perhaps none that have embraced the realm of suburbia quite like Heteropoda jugulans. This mottled brown species occurs along much of the country's eastern coast, thriving even in well-developed areas where other huntsmen are sparse at best, and I'd wager that nearly every backyard shed in eastern Australia shelters within its cluttered interior a healthy population of these incredibly successful spiders.
Huntsmen aren't the only large and lanky hunting spiders that can make an appearance around human dwellings. Australia is also home to several members of the Dolomitidae, the fishing spiders. How likely you are to encounter a fishing spider is heavily predicated on whether or not you own a pool. I myself don't, but my current job entails I spend a fair bit of time around pools, so these spiders are something I come across on a regular basis. Fishing spiders, it could be said, have co-opted the water as a sort of ready-made web. The water's surface tension traps many insects that fall upon it, and much as if they were captured upon an actual web, their struggles generate vibrations across the water that the spider can then use to home in on its target. And nor are fishing spiders restricted to hunting on the surface either. Should the spider detect anything swimming around below, be it a small fish or an aquatic insect, it can plunge beneath the surface to seize it, and this ability to dive underwater at a moment's notice also comes in very handy when avoiding predators.
Some of the fishing spider's close relatives have forsaken a life on the water. One such example is Dendrolycosa, yet another spider whose abundance and success amid the suburbs is all too often overlooked. Dendrolycosa constructs an expansive and rather complex web, consisting of a broad, horizontal platform extending outwards from a secluded, funnel-shaped retreat. These spiders mostly construct their dwellings among the foliage of trees, but as is the case for many of the spiders we've covered thus far, they've found ample opportunities in man-made structures too. And for Dendrolycosa, a railing or a fence can be an adequate substitute for the trees they so often inhabit. Also close cousins of the fishing spiders are the wolf spiders from the family Lycosidae. These are ground-dwelling spiders with a fairly robust build and large, well-developed eyes, and their vision, while not quite on par with that of the jumping spiders, is still among the best of any spider. As far as hunting tactics go, wolf spiders are far from a monolith. Some are vagabonds that forage through the undergrowth and actively seek out their prey, while others are ambush predators, living in burrows from which they launch out to seize any unsuspecting critter that ventures too close to the entrance. During the day, wolf spiders are not often seen, but it's a different story come nightfall. And there's a simple trick one can use to get an idea of just how abundant they can be in the right habitat. Wolf spider eyes are not only large, they're also highly reflective, and if you hold a torch at roughly eye level and shine it upon the ground, then you may behold the minute but piercing sparkle of the spider's eyes reflecting the torchlight back toward you. And in certain habitats, like open fields, a quick scan can reveal countless tiny glimmers, like earthen castaways from the starry skies above, a clear testament to just how prolific wolf spiders can be.
The burrowing ambush lifestyle practiced by some wolf spiders is also the modus operandi of other spiders that live, if anything, an even more secretive existence. These are the trapdoor spiders. There are many species of trapdoor spider in Australia, but perhaps the most common types around suburbia are the members of the genus Arbanatus. Despite their abundance and relative familiarity, Arbanatus are not very well studied, and it seems that quite a large number of Arbanatus species have yet to be properly described. Unlike all the spiders we've covered thus far, which are members of a spider clade called the Araneomorphs that possess inward-pointing fangs that bite like a set of pincers, trapdoor spiders belong to another spider group called the Megalomorphs, whose fangs are held in a roughly parallel orientation and strike downwards with tremendous force. Trapdoor spiders and other Megalomorphs also have a respiratory system that is both less efficient and more vulnerable to drying out than that of Araneomorphs, which restricts these spiders to a largely sedentary and subterranean existence. But while they may not be built for sustained activity, trapdoor spiders are still capable of great speed and power over short bursts, which makes them devastatingly effective ambush predators. Another group of Megalomorphs that often coexist with trapdoor spiders in the same moist, sheltered sanctuaries are the infamous Atracidae, the funnel web spiders. There are nearly 40 described species of Australian funnel web, and it's a near certainty that many more exist than have yet been named, and they occur along a sizable portion of Australia's eastern coast, mostly south of the Sunshine Coast, but a few occur further north, with one outlier species hailing from the wet tropics of far north Queensland. Funnel webs are quite variable in size, ranging from small spiders just a couple centimeters across, to the huge Hadronychi formidabilis, a tree-dwelling funnel web capable of reaching leg spans in excess of 10 centimeters, and which still comfortably holds the title of being the biggest funnel web, no matter how much the Australian Reptile Park yaps about that Newcastle big boy. Like trapdoor spiders, funnel webs are ambush predators that operate from the confines of their silk-laden burrows. A network of trip lines extends from each entrance, radiating and crisscrossing far and wide into the great outdoors beyond, primed to detect the footfall of anything wandering about the vicinity of this crude, silken fastness, giving the spider an advance warning of any prey or predators that draw close. Funnel webs are, of course, most famous for their venom, which is undeniably extremely potent and one of the few things about these spiders that is genuinely impressive. But ever since the introduction of an anti-venom in 1981, they have not been responsible for any documented human fatalities, and even before the anti-venom existed, most funnel web bite victims still survived the ordeal. And finally, with these, the most notorious of all Australian arachnids, we come to the end of this long, though far from exhaustive coverage of the marvellous assortment of spiders you can come across in your backyard here in the land down under. The diversity of spiders, not only in Australia but across the globe, is astounding, and if you want to learn a little about how it all came to be, then head on over to this video, covering what we know so far about the origin and evolution of these fascinating creatures. And if you enjoy my content, then don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next adventure.